Hello everyone. Today we will discuss capital asset pricing model. For that, first we need to define what is meant by a stock index. Okay. You must have heard about Sensex. You must have heard about Nifty. These are two major indices as far as Indian market is concerned. So Sensex is based on the basis of 30 companies. Nifty is defined on the basis of 50 companies. Okay, Sensex is sensitive index. Nifty is national 50 index. Okay, so we have to define in general how these indices are computed. Okay, so these are all known as market capitalization indices. So how do you define market capitalization index? For defining this market capitalization index, we need to fix two things. First, we need to fix a base value, and then we need to fix a base year. Okay, you must have seen something like this in BSc when you studied some other indices. For example, value can be something like 100 or 1000, etc. And base year would be some year. So once these two things are fixed, these two things are determined, we have to compute market capitalization for each company. Okay, so what we have to compute? Market capitalization for each company. And we have to actually compute two quantities: base market capitalization and current market capitalization. Okay, so what was the market capitalization in the base year and what is the market capitalization in the current year? What do I mean by market capitalization? So let me try to define. So market capitalization in any given year would be, or at any given day, market capitalization would be defined as current market price for share of the company, current market price of the shares, single share of a share of a company, into total number of outstanding shares. Total number of outstanding shares for that company. Now what do I mean by outstanding shares? Okay, this is a new word, new term. So shares, I hope. So outstanding shares are shares owned by the investors. When I say investors, I mean other than the corporation or the company itself. Okay. So other investors. See, whenever a company issues some shares, at some given time point, it may buy back some of those shares which are issued to the investors. So those shares which are now again back with the company are known as treasury stocks or treasury shares. Okay, so these are the shares which are now with the corporation. They have been bought back by that company from the investors. whereas outstanding shares are the shares which are still with the investors. And total number of issued shares is addition of treasury shares plus outstanding shares. So number of issued shares is number of treasury stocks or treasury shares plus outstanding shares. Okay. So while defining market capitalization, we have to worry about only the total number of outstanding shares. We don't worry about the treasury shares. Okay. So you define base market capitalization as well as current market capitalization. We would use number of shares and share price in base year. Okay, so values of both, values of share price as well as number of shares, both are used from base year. And for current market capitalization, we have to use the corresponding values from the current year. Now this is for a particular company. Okay, so overall base market capitalization for the entire index would be defined as sum over I belonging to index BMCI. Means you compute for each company on whom, which is included in the computation of index. So as I said, Sensex is based on 30 companies, whereas Nifty is based on 50 companies. So you compute base market capitalization for each company and then you take sum over all such things. Okay. Similarly, you compute current market capitalization. So sum over I belonging to index CMCI. Okay. And then finally, your index is defined as total current market capitalization upon total base market capitalization into the base value, which can be, as I said, 100 or 1000. Okay, so it can be either expressed in percentage or thousands. Okay, so this is how the market index is defined. Why do we define market indices? Because market index can be used to measure the movement of the market. So if suppose share prices of most of the companies tends to increase, then the overall market capitalization would increase and the index value would also increase. So this index can capture the market trend. Okay, so index is basically capturing the trends in the market, general trends, not the specific trend. Of course, you can have indices for specific sector also. So you have a separate index for say IT sector, separate index for say banking sector, and so on. So those indices would represent movements or changes in the share prices for that. As I said, it is used to capture trend in the market, and using this index we can define return in the market. Okay, so because the index value also keeps on changing, so say present index value minus past index value divided by past index value, this would become return on index. Okay, and return on index can also be called as market return if it's a generalized, if it's a general index like Sensex or Nifty. So if it's not a sector specific index, if it's a general index representing entire market, then such a return on index can be called as market return. Okay, why we are learning all this? Because capital asset pricing model is going to give us an equation to relate market return to the return on individual securities. Okay, so let us now start with the notation for capital asset pricing model. So let Ri be one period rate of return for a specified ith company. One period rate of return for ith company. So RI would be defined as SI T, means share price for the ith company at time t, minus share price for the ith company at time t minus 1 divided by SI at t minus 1. Okay. So of course, if you are talking about a longer duration, you will have to take averages over. For example, if you want to talk about daily return and you are going to use data for say last month, then you will have to talk about something like average daily return. Okay. Similarly, RM is one period rate of return on the entire market. RM is the one period rate of return on the entire market. Entire market, so it is going to be measured by index. So it is measured by index. So this would be defined as index value at time t minus index value at time t minus 1 divided by index value at time t minus 1. Okay. Okay. So this is RI and RM, and now capital asset pricing model attempts to relate RI to RM through some constant beta I. Okay. So let me write what I said just now. CAPM tries to relate RI to RM via some constant beta I. See, remember I am saying beta I. So my constant is specific to ith company. Okay, if I talk about different company, my constant might change. So what is the equation for capital asset pricing model? So the model is given by Ri minus R is equal to beta I times Rm minus R plus epsilon I, where epsilon I follows normal distribution with zero mean and variance sigma square I. Is it okay? Let me try to talk a bit about this model. So this R is your usual risk-free rate of interest. So what we are trying to do is, this is excess return from the ith company, shares of the ith company. So excess return for ith company. Why excess? Because we are subtracting risk rate of interest. So whatever is extra, and this is excess return in the market. Okay, entire market. So measured by index. So we are trying to relate excess return for ith company with excess return in the market with this constant beta I and error term. So actually this is like a regression equation for ith company. Okay. How do you estimate beta? Similar way. So if you take say 30 days daily data for Ri and Rm, then you can estimate beta I and epsilon I. Variance of epsilon I. Is it okay? So the important thing to remember is there is a separate regression model for each company. You don't have a common model. Okay. Separate regression model for each company. So each company will have its own beta. Okay. So what all can be said about beta? So beta is basically trying to see how the market affects shares of a particular company. So if beta is negative, then what happens? Generally beta won't be negative, but if suppose beta is negative, then what would happen? Then it would mean that this Rm and Ri are negatively correlated with each other. So it means that when the market goes up, the shares of this company are going to go down, and vice versa. Okay. On the other hand, if beta is positive, then it would mean that the company is moving in sync with the market. But even in positive beta, so what are the things that matter? First, of course, sign of beta. But even in positive beta or negative beta, the magnitude of beta is also important. So, for example, if beta is between 0 and 1 magnitude wise, so mod beta is between 0 and 1, then it means that whatever happens in the market, the effect on the particular company is slightly less in magnitude. So if suppose market goes up by 10 points and if say beta is half roughly, then the effect on this company shares is roughly going to be around 5. Of course, I am currently assuming small r equal to 0, which is not going to be the case. Okay. On the other hand, if beta is greater than 1, then the effect is amplified with respect to this company. So if market goes up by 5 points and if say beta is 2, then for this company share prices are going to go up by 10. Okay. Of course, it happens with both profit and loss. So if the loss in the market is 5 points, the loss for this company would be 10 points. So if beta is greater than 1, then the effect is amplified with respect to this company. Whereas if beta is less than 1, then it is slightly dampened. And of course, sign of beta is also important. So if beta is positive, then market and the company would move in the same direction. Company shares would move in the same direction. If beta is negative, they would move in the opposite direction. And the error term, so error variance also specific to that company. We will talk a bit more about it later. So now the only thing that is important is we have to remember that epsilon I is independent of Rm. So just like in regression, regressor and error are independent of each other. Okay, because Rm is regressor. Now let me introduce a couple more notations because we need to derive formula for beta I. For that we need some notations. So small ri is expectation of capital Ri. Small rm is suppose expectation of capital Rm. Okay. Then if I take let me give some number to or something to this capital asset pricing model. So let me denote it by star. So if I take expectation on both the sides of star, what do I get? Expected Ri minus R is beta I times expected Rm minus R because beta is constant and epsilon I has 0 expectation. Okay. So substituting the new notations, I would get small ri minus R is beta I times small rm minus R. Okay. Ri minus R is beta I times Rm minus R. Okay. But remember, we can't use this equation for estimating beta because small ri and small rm are going to be unknown. You would be observing capital Ri and capital Rm, but their expectations would be unknown. So you can't use this equation for estimation. Okay. So let me go back to equation star. So in equation star, I have something about capital Ri and capital Rm. So let us try to compute covariance between Ri and Rm. So that would be covariance between Ri. Let us use CAPM model to substitute for Ri. So it will be beta I times Rm minus R plus R. This plus R comes because I'm having only Ri here, and then plus epsilon I. So this R from left hand side has been shifted to right. Okay, and then Rm. Okay, but we know that covariance is free from shift of origin, so this can vanish. So this is same as covariance of beta I Rm minus R plus epsilon I Rm. Okay, this would be same as beta I times covariance of Rm minus R into Rm plus covariance of epsilon I times Rm. So this is beta I. Now again, because covariance is free from shift of origin, I could write it as covariance of Rm comma Rm plus covariance of epsilon I and Rm is 0 because we have assumed that epsilon I is independent of Rm. So this is beta I times variance of Rm. Okay. So now what I have is covariance between Ri and Rm is beta I times variance of Rm. Hence beta I estimate would be covariance of Ri Rm upon variance of Rm, and we can estimate covariance and variance using sample data. So sample covariance between Ri and Rm upon sample variance of Rm. I think it is obvious that this is exactly same as your regression equation. Okay, so your regression estimator for simple linear regression estimator for beta 1, the slope, is covariance of xy upon variance of x. Okay, so this is exactly similar to that. Okay, and we have to do one more thing. So we have estimated beta, fine, but we have to worry about variance also. So let us take variance in equation star. So what would I get? Again, I would get variance of Ri minus R is equal to variance of beta I times Rm minus R plus epsilon I. Okay, so variance of Ri minus R is beta I square times variance of Rm minus R plus variance of epsilon I, and I don't have to worry about covariance because covariance is 0. Okay, and variance of Ri minus R we know is same as variance of Ri because variance is also free from shift of origin. Beta I square variance of Rm plus variance of epsilon is sigma I square. Okay, so this variance of Ri we can denote by say Vi square, variance of the market we can denote by Vm square, and then sigma I square. Okay, so what we are doing, variance is nothing but uncertainty. So uncertainty in the returns from ith share we are splitting into two components. Okay, so this is known as systematic risk. Uncertainty is risk. Okay, so this is known as systematic risk and this is known as specific risk. So why these terms? So this beta I square Vm square component is basically coming from market. So whatever is happening in the system, the risk from that system is up to some extent transferred to the individual company. Okay, hence this is systematic risk. Okay, and it is going to be present in all the shares, I mean all the companies, whereas this sigma I square is specific to ith company, hence this is known as specific risk. Okay, so this systematic risk is actually the risk which is inherent in the market. Okay, you can't control it, so it is inherent in the market, whereas specific risk is specific to that particular company. Okay, so this is the capital asset pricing model. I think you can now compute beta if other things are given. So let us take one example for that. Okay, so suppose risk-free rate of interest is going to be 6% per annum and expected value of market rate of return is 0.1. Okay, so Rm is given to be say 0.1 and standard deviation of the market rate of return is given to be 0.2. So variance of capital Rm is given to be 0.2 square. Okay, this is given to us, and covariance for RM and RI for that particular company is given to be 0.05. Okay, then we have to compute expected rate of return for this particular company. Okay, so we have to compute small RI. Okay, expected rate of return. So what we know is small Ri minus R is beta times small Rm minus R. Now from beta I times. Now Rm is known, R is known. So we first need to compute beta I. So beta I would be covariance of Ri Rm upon variance of Rm. So this is 0.05 upon 0.2 square. So this turns out to be, I think, 1.25. And now small Ri would be R plus 1.25 times Rm minus R. Okay, so if you substitute values, this turns out to be 0.11. So if, see, you can see here beta is greater than 1.25, and Rm was given to be 0.1. Okay, so the market rate of return is 10%, but because beta is greater than 1, the expected rate of return for this particular company is 11%. Okay, it is slightly greater because beta is larger than 1. Okay, so as I said, the effect gets slightly amplified if beta is larger than 1. So this is for a particular company, but whenever you construct a portfolio, generally you have shares coming from multiple companies. Okay, so if you have shares coming from multiple companies, what would be the beta of your portfolio? And why would you be interested in that? Because you would like to see how the market movement is going to affect your entire portfolio. So your portfolio as a whole. Okay, you might have heard that people tell that you should diversify your portfolio. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Means you should invest in different types of companies. Why? Because then there is a hope that there are two reasons. First is, then there is a hope that profits from one company would be losses from one company would be getting compensated by profits from other company. And secondly, whenever you have your portfolio is like an average of multiple companies, then variance of an average is always less than the variance of the individual things. And if variance is less, then the risk is less. Okay. So how do you compute portfolio beta? So portfolio beta would just be weighted average of the betas of the individual company. Weighted average of betas for individual companies. Okay. Securities of individual companies, where weights are proportional to number of shares. Okay. Weights are proportional to number of shares. Just to make this point clear, let me take one small example. So suppose you have a portfolio consisting of 100 shares of Wipro and 200 shares of Reliance. Okay, and suppose beta for Wipro is 1.2 and beta for Reliance is suppose 0.8. Okay, then your beta for portfolio would be 1.2 into 100 plus 0.8 into 200 divided by 100 plus 200. Okay, because obviously you have to normalize the weights. So this turns out to be something around 0.93. Okay, so this is how you compute beta for the entire portfolio using individual betas. So these are the basics of capital asset pricing model. As you could see, it's a regression model which can relate expected return from a single security to expected return from a market. Okay, so let me stop here. Thank you.